Good morning. My name is Palmer, and on behalf of the Construction Users Roundtable, or CURT, I'd like to welcome you and our presenters to who are Dave Loss, Vice President of Operations, and Ian Saucer, the Director of Safety, both with Interstates, as they present Fighting Fatigue in the Field. Dave has been with Interstates for 21 years and holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Trinity Christian College and an MBA from Colorado Technical University. Dave's specialized training includes OSHA 10-hour project management, body of knowledge, and leadership Institute, FMI. He's also co-authored articles including behavior-based safety programs, improving the company culture. Ian Saucer has 7 years experience at Interstate. He obtained his Bachelor of Science in Occupational Health and Safety with an emphasis in construction safety from the University of Wisconsin. He is a certified safety professional, an associate safety professional, and an EMT. His industry experience spans coal-fired power plants, ethanol, food grade, data centers, paper mills, and wind turbines, just to name a few. Please feel free to utilize the chat box to enter your questions. We will also provide a link to the recording of today's webinar and the slides as soon as possible to all those who have registered. And now, Dave and Ian. Gentlemen, you're muted. I think you'll have to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you for that. You guys all see my screen? Is that good? We on the right slide there?
Yes, you are good to go.
All righty. Well, thanks again, and I just really appreciate this opportunity to kind of share our story as Interstates, and just kind of some awareness around fatigue and how it affects our safety with our team members in the fields, and just everyday life of those field and team members. So just really want to, we're going to talk about some facts, but it's more about getting down to the heart of it and telling a couple stories that we can probably all relate to, as well as the things that Interstates has put into place to help kind of fight this fatigue. And kind of, to be honest with you, I think it's changed lives. It's saved lives in some aspects. So we'll jump right into it. Again, if there's questions, feel free to put those in the chat, and if they're relevant to what we're talking about right away, we'll gladly take those and talk about them. Otherwise, we'll have questions at the end, and we'll gladly cover whatever you ask. So thanks again for having us and joining. So quick introduction. So let's see, moving the slide. There we go. So kind of a quick introduction of who I am, what I'm about. You guys kind of got a little bit of a backstory, but I born and raised in Wisconsin. I live in South Dakota now, so been kind of a Midwest boy, if you will. And started with Bolt Construction coming out of college. Did construction throughout high school and college, and really fell in love with the trades. Got a degree in the safety, started with Bolt, like I said, and I was in the power division. So building power plants, doing rebuilds, big shutdowns, those types of things. And here in the near future, I'll tell you a story about how that kind of affected me and kind of helps me relate to this topic exactly, like what every other person has probably experienced at some point in their life, potentially. So it's a little bit about me. And we got Dave Loss.
Yeah, I'm the Vice President of Operations for Interstates and been doing that for 20 plus years. The passion I have is for our people, and you see a picture of some of our team members, and that's the piece we bring into safety at Interstates. It's really about people, and that's what we try to drive throughout the whole organization. And it's been a journey for us. We're going to share more of those details as we dig in here a little deeper.
Can you give us a little background on Interstates and what we're about?
Sure. Interstates is an industrial electrical firm that does design on the power side, automation side. We automate facilities, we do cybersecurity for facilities, and we construct facilities around the United States. Generally speaking, we would do industrial work or very heavy commercial type work. We don't do big box buildings like stores, but really more manufacturing type facilities, data centers, oil and gas, wastewater treatment type work. That's really where we focus at and have for 60 plus years.
Thank you. So I'm going to kind of jump right into my story, and I think it's something that will help kickstart the why behind this. And at the end of the day, this conversation, I really want us to understand the why around fatigue and mental health when it comes to safety within our team members. So like I said, I started with Bolt Construction, and it was a great organization. Loved what I was doing, traveling around. If I was on a project for a year, wherever it may be, different states, part of the country, it was a great opportunity. We did a shutdown once. It was a 6-month shutdown, and I was the lead on that for the safety. And I had 2 years under my belt. It was a big opportunity for me, and we were working. It was 6/12s, so they did have a fatigue management system, if you will. So the 1 day off was part of that. So that was the Sundays off. But we were working 2 shifts. So we had 200 Boilermakers on days, 200 Boilermakers on nights. And I think you guys probably, a lot of you that are on this call can relate to these situations. So I had 4 other safety people underneath me. So I was working the days, doing a lot of the meetings, stuff like that. And I found myself staying late with the night crew, making sure everything was in line there, taking phone calls in the middle of the night, if there was issues that arose. And it started to get to me. And Sundays we'd have scaffold builders come in and stuff like that. So I'd run into the office and do orientations and those types of things. And like I said, this was a 6-month deal, and then it just continued to build and build to the point where I was having some pretty significant anxiety issues and panic attacks. So I started treating with Valium, and the Valium helped me sleep, helped me calm down. But I can picture it in my mind, very clear to this day. My mom and dad came and visited me on a Sunday and took me out. I was about 7 hours from where I grew up. So they drove up, took me out for lunch, and they said, "Ian, what's going on? You're not the Ian that I know." And you guys can't see me because I'm sitting here, but I'm 6 foot. I've always been a slimmer 6 foot, but I weighed 140 pounds. I was not in a good place at all. And I grew up, with a mentality my dad taught me of, if you start something, you darn well better finish it. And having the tough conversation with my mom and dad and just saying, "Hey, I'm wore out. I'm having these stress. I'm treating with Valium, and I need to do something." And that dad's like, "Ian, you need to take care of yourself. And I understand if we got to make a change here." And at the end of the day, it was really, really hard for me, but I had to make a change. And I got off the road, got settled back down, and got a steadier, not people say 9 to 5, but it was a job where I was at home on the weekends and could live somewhat of a normal life, if you will. So that's my story. I think there's lots of stories out there, and there's stories that are going on at this exact moment that we're talking, but it is a big deal because, I contributed. There's a lot of different things, but I'd say the main factor was the work hours and my phone never stopped. It was tough. And thank goodness my parents and I guess myself as an individual recognized it and got myself out of that situation. At the end of the day, there's probably 2/3 of the people that have long-lasting fatigue that are dealing with these longer shutdowns are going to develop a mental, psychological disorder. And we got to understand that. And we got to, as an organization and as a companies and as leaders, we need to live out our values about safety. We talk about safety, we talk about whole health. Fatigue is a real deal that we need to look into. So that's my story. We'll kind of jump in here to a couple different facts. So, fatigue is not just physical. We always go to the physical side, but it's mental as well. Mental fatigue is a big deal. And at the end of the day, it's pretty simple and easy to connect the dots that, one third of the occupational injuries are from people that are just fatigued. They're tired. They're not performing at their peak. And, you get past those 12-hour days, you're 37% more likely to have risk. We do so much in the construction industry to try to fight and reduce risk, but yet we throw, well, just work 12 hours or work 14 hours or work, just put more hours to it, put more manpower to it. But yet we sit there and talk about safety. And I think it's important that we understand that we work all those hours, we're going to be, there's way more risk. So,
Yeah, and Ian's got a good story. A lot of stories don't end that well. He had intervention and was able to, reestablish his life. And so as you think about this and safety and the mental health as well as the physical health, this is the place where, in our core values, oftentimes everybody talks about safety first. I'm not sure we're always living it out when we're asking our people to work 7/12s or work longer days. And the facts are there. This is a serious issue in this industry. What are we going to do about it? So I know Ian's got some more facts to share here with everybody as well.
Yeah, so these are the things that contribute to it. We talk about longer days, quick hitters where we're working nights and we switch to days, those swing shifts. These are just simple little things. You guys can read them. But at the end of the day, these are the things that we've looked at and we've recognized as, hey, these things drive this fatigue, and how do we fight that? So, I think Interstates has a great story. It's unfortunate we had to learn the hard way, but it's really what's changed us, the way we think and the way we deal with our clients, our teams in general. So, Dave, you want to tell our story, please?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. About 19 years ago, we learned about fatigue the hard way. We were doing a shutdown on a steel facility, and we had committed at that point in time to work 7/24, so we were running 2 shifts. And I still remember to this day, I rode in, we were probably 4 weeks into a 6-week shutdown. I rode in on the bus to get into the facility with the crews one night. And as I watched him come on that bus, and as I watched him go off that bus, they were basically walking zombies. They were not thinking, and we had them in incredibly hazardous environments. And unfortunately, we had a significant injury on this project. It's sad to remember because it still breaks my heart because we had someone get injured, and seriously. The good news is it changed who we were. I think we were driven by client. Let's make our client happy. Whatever they require of us, that's what we're going to do. Profits also drove us as well. And we had our core value of family, but at that point in time, and we didn't really know it, we were putting our family at risk. And so we built some controls in place, and we're going to talk about that, but we want you to understand we're not perfect. We're still on this journey. We're working on mental health, mental fatigue, and physical fatigue. And 8 years after that, or about 10 years ago, I was on another project. We were building a football stadium or making some modifications to a football stadium in Wyoming. It had been a really incredibly long day. The football game was 2 days away. We were getting an incredible amount of pressure to get this facility ready to go. I remember it was about 11 o'clock at night, and we had one more task let's just do one more task. And it was elevated work, super dangerous type work. But one of our controls in place was after you worked 12 hours, you had to make a phone call to someone, another senior manager that wasn't on that project. And I believe to this day that saved a life or two. Because when we got on the phone with this other person and they weren't there, they weren't in this rush, we got to get this done, one more thing. That person stopped us and said, have you guys lost your mind? Go home and sleep on it. And we did. And the next morning we found a much safer, better way to execute this task. And so that's some of the things we want to share is that we're not perfect, but we've built some controls in place, some triggers in place to help us make sure the pressure of making a client happy or whatever else it may be doesn't stand in the way of taking care of our people, both mentally and physically. So that's some of our story. There's more, but that's a piece on why we're so concerned about fatigue in the workplace.
Thanks, Dave. So a couple of things that we do here at Interstates. So over 50-10. So if a project's going to work over 50, they have to fill out a form. And it's about having that conversation. It's about thinking through how are we going to execute the work if we got to work over 50 hours that week. And if you got to work over 10. So if we're working a 12-hour day, you fill out the form. It comes to myself, comes to the executive project manager. We have that conversation. And ultimately, we get these every single week if it's a project that's continuously. And some of the questions that we ask is, what are the additional safety measures? How many weeks have they worked in a row? Those types of things. We do also get an over 50 report. So every Wednesday I get a report. It shows over every team member that worked over 50 hours that week and what project they've been on and how many weeks they've worked over 50. This all gets analyzed and brought to the PMs and saying in the soups and saying this person needs off, this, that, and other things. So 6 days in a row max. This is true to our culture. It is voodoo to work 7 days in a row. You guys may or may not believe this, but it does not happen. There's a way, there's a method that we will not allow 7 days in a row. It's what we do. Every third weekend off. So if we're working a larger project that's requiring more hours, we schedule, we make sure that third weekend they're at least getting 2 days off. It's really important that you have that time to take away get your mind off the work and tasks and be able to enjoy the things that you do and you love. I mean, that's talking about taking care of people. Minimum 2 days between the shifts. So if we're working a night shift, you're gonna have 2 days off before you go back to a day shift. We really, and I think our project managers, our soups do a really, really nice job of this, is they try to limit their works on Friday and Saturdays to 8 hours so that, they can go, these guys and gals can go to the bank, they can go grocery shop, they can go do these things, and then also be able to have a good night and go out or have fun with their friends and family. It makes a huge difference. And when you talk about safety, it's a huge difference there, but quality of productivity, if they're working, these eights, they feel refreshed. They feel like they can, hey, we're going to get this done here. And then we're going to go have a good time here in the evening. So there's a couple of some of the softer side things that we do, which we'll also talk about.
Yeah, one thing I didn't mention earlier is when we made that transition 19 years ago to really work on fatigue, one other thing we did there is we said operations own safety, safety's there just for support. And so project management, senior management, we're responsible for the safety of our people. And that is not a burden we put on our safety staff. They're there to help us. We're there to drive it. And so some of the ways we do that, and because mental health is so important, we do something called talent reviews. And so senior management, project management, we go out to the field, and at least twice a year, we're going to sit down with every employee, no matter what role or responsibility they have. And we're going to ask them nothing about the job. We're going to ask them how they're doing personally. How is their family doing? What are your career goals? what do you really want to do? What part of the country would you like to see? And so it's a way different approach, but it's a way for us to really understand our people. A recent example of that is there was one guy that was having performance issues at work. Our guys know him so well, they were able to discuss this with him. And then he needed a little time off to take care of his mom. We said, hey, take whatever time you need. We'll save your job for you. You come back when you get that squared away. And that meant the world to him. And then we do leadership training that is really focused as much around mental health and leadership as it is about the technical aspects of safety and leadership on a project. And a lot of the time we spend, what do you know about the people you work with? And we challenge our leaders, tell me something about everybody on your job. And so recently we were in Tampa on a project that had about 80 people, and we were down in Georgia where we have about 110 or so people on that job. And we sat down with the leadership on that job and we said, okay, before we go talk to the crew, tell me about everybody on this job. Not about how their work performance is. Tell us about their family. Tell us about what they like to do when they're not at work. And so we do that when we go out to the field. We want to know, tell us about what they're really about. So then we can go out there and have that conversation. And, you know, I know everybody says safety first. That's what we do here. It really is. How's the safety environment? Are you keeping yourself well? Are you celebrating with these guys when things are going well? And then we talk about quality, and then we might bring up productivity, but we will never compromise our safety and for productivity. And you can check this with our lowest level apprentice to a superintendent. That's how we operate. I know everybody says it. What we do is when we tell them during onboarding and bring them in, we're going to come out in the field and we're going to ask you in 30, 60, 90 days, and then a year down the road, what is safety like? And they tell us. So we're working on mental fatigue. If people are tired, stressed out at home, or whatever that might be, as well as physical fatigue. And these checks and balances are put in place to help us deal with those things.
Thanks, Dave. So here's a quick, it may be hard for you to see, but I kind of put the over 50 request form and how that would look and how I get that. And then scheduling wise, so this is kind of an example of the PM or PC will do a cut sheet of, all right, what days they've had on and what days they have off, and how that all looks. So, you know, this was, for example, was a shutdown that we had to do. Yeah, just kind of a quick example.
That goes to, you can see it on the bottom, goes to the senior PM, goes to a regional manager, goes to safety director and staff. So it's not just going to the leadership on that project. It goes to a wider group that can analyze this. There's also our staffing group will take a look at this and say, hey, looks like they're going to run into a bump. How do we send 3 extra guys down there so these people can be off? How do we have, you know, if you do any work, you know, you run into a snag and the hours go long, there's always got to be a backup plan. Okay, when the hours go long, who's coming in and who's going home? And so we spend a lot of time talking with our field leadership and our electricians. How do we do this different? Because guess what? Oh, I got it planned out just perfect. That never happens. So we always require that they have a contingency plan and contingency phone calls to people not on the project. So they're not caught up in the pressure of, let's get this job done. So we have more of these types of forms. And, you know, Ian shared earlier some of those checks and balances we have in place. So there's processes and procedures to all of this that we are really want to share with other people, want to help out. If you have some as well, we're very interested in learning what you're doing for physical fatigue and mental fatigue. As we're in this industry, it's really about our people.
So as we wrap this up, obviously questions in the chat, please, if you have any other questions. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, this is real, and we as leaders in this industry have to recognize that throwing more people, putting more hours in a day is not going to solve our problems to finish these projects. It's just not. We're going to get people hurt or killed. I've seen it multiple times, unfortunately, on big projects where, hey, bring in an extra 1,000 more people. We'll get this job done. We're gonna work 13 days on and 1 day off. And next thing you know, someone's dead. So the reality is we have to stand up and say, hey, what are we gonna do to fight fatigue and mental health in this industry? We have to. Otherwise, we're gonna continue down the same road, throwing more people, more hours, we're gonna get the same exact result.
And the stats are out there on, this is like a #1 hazard that's not being dealt with. And management really has to deal with it. But yeah, let's dig into some of those questions that are in the chat.
Okay, here's the first one. How has the COVID climate affected fatigue, and what suggestions do you have to alleviate that specific fatigue?
Want to run with that or?
Go ahead.
That COVID really has put a lot of extra burden on especially the mental health. So, you know, people are coming to work now thinking about their family that might have COVID or their friends that might have COVID. And so what we've really done there is, especially during the middle of it when it was hypersensitive, we spent more time talking about that. And if people had issues going on, we made sure, hey, let's build some time away for this person. We built some clear, if COVID was in their family that exposed to it, we gave them time off and we paid them for that time off. So we became really hypersensitive to that and continue to watch that as that is an extra stress and strain. And so it's not that we don't talk about it, we talk about it. And it's a safety topic for us. And it's a constant conversation for us. You know, as it takes off, maybe it's hyper in one part of the country because we work all over the United States. We try to stay on top of that. That's largely what we do. We've got a committee that reviews that all the time, staying in touch with the CDC. What adjustments do we need to do? You know, extra cleaning, washing of hands, all those things are things we've done both from a physical side and a mental health side.
Yeah, I just add to we talked about it. We talked about it a lot to the point where they didn't want to hear about it anymore. And that's, you know, I think that's one of the things that we do is we talk about it. We don't try to hide behind it. We talk about it. How are we going to do this? How are we going to be successful? And if there is something going on, it's giving that employee the time that they need to be able to handle that situation. So.
Okay, our next question has a little statement before it. One of my concerns has been that even when my company has a sound policy targeting overwork, in other words, hours, shifts, consecutive shifts, etc., I don't know what any given worker has been doing, hours and shifts, consecutive shifts, prior to coming to my site. Any thoughts on addressing this, particularly if the person has moved across construction companies or from job to job?
Go ahead.
I just think I know it's hard, especially if it's a new employee or if you're in the union environment where they're coming out of the hall. I think it's about getting to know them, right? And that's hard when they're just coming to site. So I don't know if that's probably not the right answer, but my suggestion would be to maybe just have that conversation with them and just and through orientation, just saying, hey, where are you sitting? Do you feel you know, fatigued? What are you coming off of? Are you coming off of a 6-month shutdown? Because a lot of these gentlemen and women are out and they're chasing the shutdowns, you know, to work a lot of hours to make money. Obviously, that's some part of the role. But I think it's about, again, addressing it and bringing up the conversation and saying, hey, are you coming off a 6-month shutdown? If so, are you ready to come to work? Or do you need a week off? And having those conversations, I think. I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's a tough question there. I could see that one. So we don't experience that as much because we have employees that we've hired on and we keep them. But yeah, if they're coming out of the hall and you're hiring them, you don't know where they're coming from in the background side. So One thing we do is a week-long orientation. We bring them to our office in Omaha or in Sioux Center, and that's kind of a feeler of, hey, where are they at? Where are they at with mentally and our culture and everything else. So maybe that's the answer, is maybe a little bit more longer orientation so that you can get a better feel for where they're sitting.
All right, next one. What kind of data did you review and seek out when you developed your guidelines? Internal injury rates based against trends on when the injury took place and hours worked between time off, or any outside industry studies, insurance carriers, etc.?
Yeah, I'm probably part of more of that history than Ian. I would say we did both. I mean, it's a great question. So there is plenty of data, and Ian included some of that in on this presentation, but OSHA's got plenty of data on it, but we probably spent more time looking at our own injuries and our history and when did they happen and why did they happen. And, you know, our facts basically aligned with what OSHA had. You know, about a third of our injuries is guys were just tired, or guys were worn out mentally, or they didn't have their mind on the task. That might tell you that they've got a mental issue, fatigue or physical fatigue. So we took both sets of that data, and we continue to analyze it today and say, okay, what is causing these injuries? And let's look at how we're going to mitigate that or eliminate that. So yeah, great question. We use a lot of data to help us through that.
And I mean, data is one thing, but just truly stepping back and looking at what's causing your injuries and just in general life, right? When we're fatigued, it's not hard to figure out that it creates issues, whether it's, you know, safety wise or just home life, those types of things. I guess my push is I don't need a statistic to tell me that. I think that, you know, what we see speaks volumes when we walk to a job site and we see it. We're on week 2 of a shutdown and no one's had a day off. It's pretty clear.
But there is plenty of data out there too.
Okay. Next question. As a contractor, we find real challenges with fatigue related to short turnaround projects, owners who expect 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. How does Interstate combat this?
Yeah, that's a great story. So we see those same contracts. Before we sign those contracts, we have those discussions. And generally our commitment is we'll staff it differently to just make sure our people fit into what our standards are. And when you really have that conversation and you dig in, generally they'll go along with it. We have walked away from contracts that won't yield for it. But generally speaking, we'll just go to a different staffing model and show them the different staffing model. So, you know, if they needed 30 guys, we might staff it with 35 so that we can adjust and make sure people have that time off. But sometimes management's just got to walk away. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. Why would you put your people out there? And I think generally speaking, when we have those conversations, certainly with the owners and also with EPCs and GCs, they generally get it as well. They may not like it. So we try to address that at contract time and then make the decision. And we just won't do business with some people that say, hey, well, I don't really care. You know, you guys are going to work 7 or you're going to walk away. Those are the tough decisions. Sometimes you got to walk away, but usually you can negotiate that.
Yeah, I know we're cutting here on time, but we were part of a project that was a very large project to the point where there was 7,600 people on site and many contractors, many electrical contractors, and that owner, GC, if you will, CM company said, this is what we're going to do. They just started throwing more manpower because they got behind, and they said, hey, you guys got to work this shift. It's 13 on, 13 12s, day and night, and then after you get the 14th day off. And we said, no, we're not doing that. No way. We had about 110 people on that site, and they kind of, you know, flex their muscle a little bit. And we were willing to pull off and said, all right, we're done. You know, this was not what the deal that we signed, and we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that to our people. And out of all those other contractors, they all folded, and we were the only contractor there working 6 days a week. We had every third weekend we had off, Saturday, Sunday, and sadly to say, there was 2 people that lost their lives on that project soon after they set that requirement that everybody had to work 13 days on.
Wow. So one final question. Ian mentioned that construction workers want to work longer hours for the income. How did Interstates manage employee income expectations with the reduced hours and shifts, and did productivity change up or down?
So I'll weigh in first and then you hop in there, Ian. A couple things. When we hire our people, they know generally here's the hours we work. So they know going in, here's generally what we work. We're not going to work 7/12s. We're not going to work 12-hour days. We're going to tell you you're going to work between really 45 and 55 hours is generally where we tell them where they're going to be. And some of them really struggle with that and won't come to work for us. And we're okay with that because that's not the person that fits our culture. But once they get into this culture, they tend to really like it. On our project, we really encourage a lot of doing things off the site as a team and as a family. So, you know, now they're quad riding together or they're fishing together or whatever else. So they really generally embrace that concept. If they just want to work for the hours, Interstates is not the place that they want to be, but we pay our people well. So on the productivity side, again, we say safety first, then we're going to do quality, then we'll be productivity. Our productivity numbers are above industry average. So we do keep track of that. I mean, we are in business. So our average is always above everybody else. And we attribute that a lot of how do we take care of our people? So I don't know, maybe you want to speak.
Yeah,
good question.
One of the things that we talk about and we ask when we sit down with each employee is we ask, you know, where are you at with hours? How do you feel your project is, and you know, just Interstates in general. You know, how many hours is ideal for you to work? And 45 to 50 is probably 95% of the answers that we hear. And I can tell you from experience that I've had a lot of conversations, because I was actually one when I started my career. Obviously, I told you my story, but I chased hours. I love those big long shutdowns early on when I was getting those big paychecks and stuff, but then it got to me, right? And those, you know, individuals, team members that have come from that past, they go, there's more to life than just working. Like, I got to the point where I couldn't believe that people weren't working every Saturday. Like, Saturday wasn't a normal work day for everybody in the country, and Sunday as well. So it really opens their eyes. And once they realize, like, hey, 45 to 50 hours a week, I get a decent paycheck, I get a little bit of overtime, but I'm able to go fishing. I'm able to go, you know, I'm able to go home to see my friend for his wedding and those types of things. Like, it's a huge deal. So just, I don't know if that answers it, but yeah, I think we've changed a lot of minds once they get into the groove of it and say,
and they understand it's for their better well-being and their physical and mental health. So thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun for us. If you want more information, you can certainly reach out to us. Appreciate CURT giving us this opportunity to discuss this topic.
Absolutely. Thank you for your presentation and the great information. And thank you everybody else for joining us. We will get out this recording as well as Ian and Dave's contact information to you later on, possibly by tomorrow, but certainly by Monday. So thank you for joining us. You can find other important conversations and events at curtevents.com, and we will talk to you again soon. Thank you.